Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Zero.Point Reviews. This time we're covering 1982's Wes Craven's Swamp Thing. I am Jeff, joined as always by Kevin. Hey, Kevin, you ever see this one in the theater? Because I got a funny story about my first experience with this movie. Do you?
No, I didn't. I want to say like Return of the Jedi was probably my first movie that I saw in the theater.
Okay.
But I did see this when I was little. I must have been HBO or Betamax or something like that. I saw it on TV when I was very little, but way too little for the theater.
For me, my babysitter took me when I was about 6 years old to the movie theater so she can meet her boyfriend. And I was promptly hauled into this one. And not so much later, or not too long after, it was a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. I don't exactly remember which one. I'd have to look at like the time frame of release dates. But I remember this being one of the movies she took me to so she could make out with her boyfriend. She parked me with a big thing of popcorn, big thing of soda, right down, and I'll be in the back row while I sit wherever I want in the movie theater. And all I remember is the arm growing scene and me screaming my head off at it. Yes, although I watch it now and I'm like, boy, that scene is so tame. It's so not anything like at all. But like growing up, I've always had that scene forever like scarred in my brain of like my hand in the sun and regrowing my amputated arm. And I'm just like, now I'm watching it thinking, that really scared me. What the fuck? But whatever.
That was pretty good for the time, though. For 1982, that they did a good job with that, with the puppetry.
Yeah.
Now today we've all seen what happens with that with like Deadpool, and that was terrifying too. Just way too realistic. So yeah, I mean, I can't begrudge you that. They did a good job for 1982 with this.
Yeah, I swear I'd lose my head if it wasn't attached. Nope, not Demolition Man. Sorry.
Did anyone lose their head in this one?
Off the top of my head.
Pun.
Hey, somebody got to deliver it tonight.
No, I remember the first time I'd seen this. I want to say I was at my friend Suzanne Silva's house. My mom and her mom were really good friends. And I think I was spending the night over there. And it was on TV. And they had a big screen TV for the time. And I was just fascinated with it. And like the monsters just looked so cool to me because I'd never seen anything like that before.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, this was a treat for me as a kid.
Did you have a favorite monster out of this batch, or was it Swamp Thing like everybody else?
If it wasn't Swamp Thing, it was probably Bruno. Like Bruno sticks out to me very specifically from this.
Big Bruno or Little Bruno?
Yes. Where is he? Like, what it really was his screaming right here.
Oh, yeah, when he was doing the transformation scene.
Yes, like he did such a phenomenal job. Like you felt like he was scared and in pain. Like he really did. And then jumping up on top of the table like a wild animal after that was something else.
Yeah, Nicholas Worth did great up until that point until he got replaced by by another actor.
It was the same voice though, wasn't it?
I want to say it was. They had to have done that in ADR.
Yeah, because it was really good.
It seemed like it was looped on top of whoever's voice that really was.
I don't even think you really saw the mouth moving at all. I'm not sure.
Not a whole lot. But he didn't have a whole lot of lines either. It was mostly like, if you want to leave, I'll help you escape. Go down this way. And then, you know, after Arcane's transformation, he basically is like, ah, sucker. And he like avoids Arcane and he's gone and never to be seen again.
Yeah, right. You never hear about him or hear of him after that. Like maybe he gets to keep the plantation. I don't know. But yeah, that... It reminded me of Puck from Alpha Flight, how he just like roll up into a ball and like fly at people and knock them out. That's pretty much funny. What Bruno did. It was cool. I liked it. If for people watching at home, if you've never seen Swamp Thing, you're doing yourself a disservice. Go see it. It's great. The story is great. It lacked a bit of a budget. There's a sequel that's not great at all that had a fantastic budget. So like the ideal thing would be if they could mix like those two movies together, which I guess would be what the TV show was.
Right. Yeah, the show was pretty good. Did that still have, I'm sorry, I'm horrible at this, but like, was Dick Durock in the TV show as well?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So then that makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah, he did really great. Like he becomes Swamp Thing in a way, the same way Kane Hodder or Robert Englund have become Jason or Freddy. Like he owned that for a good long time.
Yeah, I thought Dick Durock actually did really good in this movie when it was mostly him as the focus. Up until that point, it was Ray Wise, and I'm just like, I don't know if I buy this guy as a scientist based on everything else I've seen him in. But
he's kind of a scoundrel in this, in a way.
He was very suave and debonair, I want to say. Like, he definitely had a way with everything.
I mean, finding this possum named Alessandro was fantastic.
Oh, possum.
And Alessandro, hey, I even wrote it down properly in my notes that way too. This is where they got the formula from. This, like, the big breakthrough is like some fleas or mites on his pelt, and they made up the name of the critter that he was. And it's very much an opossum, yes. But Ray Weiss, where is he? There's a scene here. He over delivers on this role. Like, he did such a good job when Arcane kills his sister that you were just kind of like, wow, that's kind of way too good for this movie.
Right? That's what I thought. Up until he became Swamp Thing, I'm like, man, this is a little too high class. Even Adrian Barbeau, who is doing a great job up to a point, was like, wow, this is a little too good for this movie, because the movie's just not up to the quality of like these two actors. And if you check out the interviews, like on the Blu-ray set from like MVD, Red Letter Media, when Scream Factory did the movie initially, they had some of these interviews, but she even says, like, the original script, this is not what we got out of this movie. So
they really
quite a bit. The budget got cut a lot. And so Wes was always trying to come up with ways to find ways around things. That's what you had to do with low budget movies back then. Scenes were cut, plots were cut, characters were cut. Like, special effects budget went out the window. Like, honestly, if you look at the fight scenes, the stunt guy who's Swamp Thing has a completely different face mold than Dick Durock does. And it looks like it. But despite all that, the movie still somehow comes together. And these actors still put in a performance, even though Adrian Barbeau herself says, like, I watched this movie and I hated my performance in it. And it's like, well, kind of towards the end of the movie, you kind of feel it, but whatever. It's still a fun
movie. The ending was a choice.
Yeah, I agree. Like, man, you had Adrian Barbeau playing a very strong woman character until about the last 20 minutes of the movie, and then she just stands around waiting for things to happen.
Yes, once they put her in a skirt, then you're just kind of like, okay, now she's a captive, she's a damsel. Like, I think you could see her here, where it's like, I think they only put her in this dress to accentuate her boobs. Like, she didn't need to be at this party at all. Like, I don't know. It was nice that she was still in the scene, but they really should have just kept it to the speech about Bruno being there and why he was at the table.
Right. They could have kept it a little bit more on the simple side. They didn't need her to be there, because it wasn't like, Arcane was trying to woo her or anything. He didn't really give a shit about that.
No, not at all. Like, he was really tolerant of her, for lack of a better term. Like, he didn't want to necessarily kill her unless she got in the way.
Yeah.
And that's the interesting thing about Arcane. Like he could flip flop back and forth which way he's going to be, like either completely sadistic, kill everyone, leave no witnesses, or you're okay, just don't get in my way.
Yep, but we're gonna leave you in chains in the dungeon and just have you standing there instead of like doing anything important to the plot otherwise, because we're just gonna stab you later anyway. With a sword, which made me go, what are you doing? I know we're getting a little jumping around, but like I got some thoughts about this movie, and it's mostly regarding the last like 20-30 minutes of it. Like Arcane's transformation was really good, but the first thing he does is he smashes shit and grabs a sword and goes running after everybody. If he's truly like this crazed beast, what's the hell is he doing grabbing a sword for?
That was a choice. Again, you're just kind of like, you're waiting for it. You're like, here he comes. Here comes the budget. He's going to be this great big monster. He's talking about evolution and all that shit. And you're like, okay, is it coming yet? Anytime?
Oh, that's funny.
It doesn't really go anywhere until he comes out of it, and you're like, oh, what is this? Like, he's part armadillo, part wolfman, part pig, and you're like, I don't understand. What is he? And like you said, the first thing he does after that is go running for a sword. Like,
I did not understand that at all. I mean, it's a choice.
His face here, this was the best shot I got of it. The eyes didn't move.
Nope.
There's a mouth within the mouth, holes in the armpits, like, and you could tell very much that they didn't have budget for costumes in this.
Right.
But
I get that the main studio was cutting their feet out from under them. They tried, they did what they could. So I don't blame like any of the cast and crew for this. Like they had like no choice in this matter.
No. And even here, I mean, people like to make it like it's no good, but look at Swamp Thing's costume here. And it's very plain compared to what we see in the TV show and in the sequel and then in the 2019.
But the 2019 show is like really good level shit is what that is. And I don't mean that in a bad way. That is like top-notch shelf right there. And for this time, this is still good, but it doesn't feel right.
No, it really doesn't, because there are a lot of points where it just looks like he's wearing like neoprene with a couple vines over it. And then the nice mask. The mask was not bad at all. Like it looked like Swamp Thing's face. So
yeah, exactly.
Except to your point with the
stunt guys.
Yeah, the stunt guy that was on the boat.
Well, the stunt guys, all the fight scene, most of the fight scenes, like you see, it looks like a freaking like ski mask around like his like whole nose and forehead, because he's got this line going across his forehead. It seems really odd.
Yes, it was like a weird Oompa Loompa mask almost. I that's the only way I could think of describing it. It was not good.
Right.
It was not good. Fun, but because I mean, Swamp Thing on a speedboat with a 50 cal, you'd think it'd be great, but he doesn't fire it. Nothing really explodes at that point.
Goddamn Swamp Thing! Aren't you supposed to be some badass or something, bro?
The first hour of the movie is him running around the fucking swamp screaming and moaning. And
dude needs a cookie. Somebody get him a cookie. Get him a beer. I don't know. He's obviously had a bender and he needs a relapse.
Yeah. But I mean, the movie was set up fun. It is comic bookish. The story is not bad at all. The only thing that's bad, and you can't even say bad, is the costumes, and it's just from the lack of budget. It made it cheesy. Right. But it is Wes Craven. Wes Craven is not a bad director. I don't think he's as good as everyone said he was, but he does good work. Henry Manfredini did the soundtrack or the score for this.
That was
Great
wonderful,
work.
dude. Yeah.
Yeah. It very much had the same tones of either Friday the 13th did, as well as the earlier Nightmare on Elm Street. Like the music cues were there, the subtleties were there as far as the actors moving and the sets. It was all very similar to what you would expect from a Wes Craven or a Sean Cunningham film.
Right.
It didn't have the budget for costumes or special effects.
No, that notwithstanding, honestly, the first, I want to say, about 45 to 50 minutes of this movie is surprisingly good. It's when you get to that last act that things start to fall apart plot wise, character wise, costume wise. Things are falling off the costumes. I mean, I hate to bag on this movie, but there are some drawbacks once you get to the last act. But like, honestly, the first, like, I want to say 50 minutes really is a really good movie. And it really pulls you in so that when you get to that last act, you can't help but feel like defeated. Like, man, what the hell did studio do to this movie? What was cut? Like, as far as like scenes go, plots go, like there clearly felt like there was something missing out of that last act. Not just with Adrienne Barbeau's character of Alice, not just with like Swamp Thing, but like everybody. It felt like motivations were out the window. It felt like complete character development was just like poof, like the swamp, you know, the steam from the swamp. It just evaporated before everybody's eyes. And one last thing I remember from walking out of the theater was a lot of people going, "That was pretty good, but man, that sucked for an ending."
Oh shit!
But the movie
I remember
over
really
time
liking
has
the
gotten a
ending.
cult classic, you know. So clearly, there is something to this movie. This is why people have gravitated to this movie and why it's had a popularity for many, many years. Now the sequel, that's a different choice, is what that is.
You have to like cheese and cartoonish type movies for that. It's not bad at
drugs.
all. I do like drugs too, yes.
And I like drinking.
I mean, you know, it's all plant-based. He'd be okay with it, I guess, as long as it's dried out and not wasted. And anyway, yeah,
Just
speaking of
make
which,
sure you inhale.
make sure you inhale. Hold it.
Release. That's when you know you gotta go.
Since it's here anyway.
Yep. Why not?
This will get us demonetized.
We must be first monetized for us to be demonetized.
Oh, that's right. Come on, YouTube. Monetize us, motherfuckers. We're good for ads.
We gotta get those subs up. That's all.
Yeah. But the movie, as far as you said, for the first 50 minutes go, it was pretty compelling. They kind of sped through things a bit. A lot of the exposition was fast and stereotypical type talk, like, oh, it's all hush hush what we're doing here, because, you know, Washington was the answer for everything. Like,
Yep.
Do we have to explain that? No. Why? Because Washington. So you're like, okay, maybe they're government agents or whatever, and I suppose that they were. And then Alec is immediately attracted to Cable. Cable's attracted to Alec, but thinks that he's married, and then finds out, yeah, it's a little backwards. Because let's see here, where is it?
The sad flows through the swamp. So are the days of our lives.
She figures something out or gives him an idea, and he just like puts his face into hers.
He's just like, screw this shit, I'm kissing this girl.
Kinda. And then she kind of tells him what to go do with herself or with himself, until the sister goes, no, our mom wouldn't like that, or something like that, or the dad. And then she finally kind of puts two and two together.
Oh my god. Imagine Adrienne thinking at the time, you know, I'm married to John Carpenter. What the fuck am I doing on this movie?
Was she really?
Yeah, and it was actually John who convinced her to do the Swamp Thing movie because he's like, "Oh, Wes Craven's doing it. You got to do one of his movies."
Oh.
Check out them bonus features on this MVD beautiful edition.
I think I shall. I think I shall.
Copies in the mail.
But I did like Cable's character. You know, we said she's a government agent. She wasn't a damsel in distress until the end. In fact, at the beginning, she just straight up beats the shit out of Bruno here.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Like, that was awesome. I actually literally wrote down, Adrian's beating the shit out of some dude, and this is awesome.
Yeah, and Bruno was a big dude. Like, he wasn't not muscular or skinny guy. He was a big, capable man, and she just straight up punches him out, slams her knee into his balls several times, and then beats the shit out of his face.
She just like is vicious, and I totally am in for it. Like, man, this is how you set up a strong character for the end, and you get to the end, and it's like, no, she's not a damsel in distress. Why did you do that to her? So I feel like there had to be something more for her in the end, and they just had to adjust based on everything going on behind the scenes.
That happens. And again, early comic book movies were not like they are now. Like,
No.
Superman at best had that level of prestige because Superman was the only superhero at that point, really, that was like the major household name.
Until they got to the third movie, anyway.
You know what? I will always defend Superman 3. 1, because I love Richard Pryor. 2, because the bad guy's sister, when she gets turned into Brainiac at the end, always scared the shit out of me. Same age, same friend's house.
Gotcha.
Yeah, like Suzanne's dad let us watch a whole bunch of cool shit. Like, nothing inappropriate, but I grew up watching these horrible, wonderful monster movies over there. So, that's another 0 point.
That's okay. I was watching sci-fi movies. I wasn't so much into the horror, but I got hauled to them enough as a kid that I eventually clicked with them.
I always loved horror. Like, my dad would rent alien movies here and there. Like, Laser Blast probably would have been my dad's kind of thing. But like, monster movies were always rented on the weekends. Always. And like, if any kind of classic monster movie was on late at night, if Elvira was hosting a show, I'd get woken up. Oh, come watch Frankenstein. Okay. Okay.
That's
so,
funny.
And I try to do that with Zoe now.
Okay.
Hunter doesn't like it, but Zoe's kind of like, oh, people are getting killed. Cool. All right, Dad, let's do this. Coffee?
That's a good girl.
That's as good as my 4-year-old gets. Otherwise, she's a fucking asshole.
Parenting 101.
She flooded the backyard today. Everything. She flooded the entire backyard.
Parenting at the Smith household. Weekend edition number 9,422.
I was watching next week's movie and making the stills for those, or creating the raw stills. And my boy comes out and goes, Dad, Zoe has the faucet on. I'm like, well, tell her to turn it off. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, wait, it's broken. They can't. So I get up to go do it, and there's like marsh everywhere. I'm like, fuck.
Oh, no. Hey, she must have been watching Swamp Thing and getting some ideas.
All the kids were really kind of watching it and digging it. So cool. I was okay with it. If I get the TV show eventually, Zoe will end up watching that as much as she does RoboCop, which my wife is like still livid about.
Oh, whatever. The show ain't that bad.
No, the show was fantastic. Yeah. So, but
well,
0 point.
Well, to tie it back around, not a 0 point. This movie is not that hard R-rated.
Was it R-rated at all? I mean,
let's take a look.
PG.
Yep. PG version, except for the international version, if you somehow got that, or you have the brand new 4K Blu-ray from MVD Rewind. You can also get the standard Blu-ray, which has the same edition on it. This is just the 4K with the Blu-ray in it.
This is the original MGM DVD that came out. Pretty sure I bought this at like Suncoast or something like that.
Yeah.
But it is actually the international version that has the deleted scene. I almost dropped my jaw. I was like, hey, that's that scene that Jeff showed me. Yay!
Yep. Well, you have a rare DVD at that point, until now, anyway.
Until now. Thanks for flooding the market.
Oh, they flooded something when they put that scene out.
Okay, can we talk about that for just a moment? Now, like, I am not a neat freak by any means whatsoever. I don't have OCD. I'm not a germaphobe like my wife is. You would not catch me putting my nethers in swamp water. Flesh-eating bacteria, leeches, snakes, gators. No.
It'll be a flesh wound. You'll be okay.
Swamp monsters. Fuck. Merkin men.
Oh, right.
Armored pig things.
Yeah, as you're listening to Kevin complain about the swamp, I was showing off the release. So our podcast listeners, when you hear the audio version, you'll be like, wow, Jeff ain't saying much, but if you're checking us out on our YouTube channel, you're getting a lot more 0 Point than you've ever seen before.
Oh, it's going to get worse.
Yeah, until you have to pull your pants back up, bro.
They're okay now. I'm just saying, it's like 89 degrees in here right now. It's really hot.
That's probably how hot it was in the swamp when they were shooting some of this movie.
You mean when he got caught on fire?
Oh my, that was a great special effect, dude. Oh my God. I also felt bad for the guy because it's like, man, how long were you in that suit for? I know like Kane Hodder had a problem with a fire suit going wrong at one point, and that's never left him. But like this shit was crazy.
That burned up his neck and arms, didn't it?
Yep.
That's what I thought. Yeah, this scene here, the stuntman, like kudos to him because that was a long way to run and then jump into that swamp water.
And he went straight down. Like you see those feet at the end of that dock, he's basically just going straight down. Like I'm hitting the brakes and going straight in the water as soon as freaking possible.
Yeah, he was not going for distance.
No.
He was not. He just wanted in there and fast. And who could blame a dude? No
kidding.
I was confused about it because wasn't the lab underground? Like he gets lit on fire.
Seemed like it, didn't it?
In the lab. Had to go up the fucking elevator
and up a little short staircase and turn around, do a 180, and then you might have to go through the double doors and another set of double doors. Then you're outside.
All the
like a freaking video game.
Ah!
It almost felt like a cutscene out of a Resident Evil video game where you're trying to get out of the mansion to get to something and to something else, so you can get yourself like healed.
Healed, or so you could find the instruction booklet.
Wow.
What? She found that the last journal, like that's the whole plot motivator device for the whole movie.
Oh, I know. It just, yeah. Just I don't check these slides. Sometimes I don't check these slides out for Kevin when he does these for 0 Point. It's one of our shticks here is Kevin's wonderful slides. And sometimes I like to be surprised, and I didn't look at any of these for Swamp Thing. So when they show up, it's like, oh, okay, here we go. I get pleasantly surprised when I start laughing, or I'm like, oh, I got to do some editing in post.
I don't think I did anything too bad. Like,
no,
calling that pig monster Merkin Man was probably the worst I got. So,
no, the most I ever had to do was look at From Dusk Till Dawn and be like, you might want to change a thing here or there. There's a lot of boobage in that movie.
I covered it up here with Alec.
I know.
That was pretty good for the scaling size too.
Because Alec's boobs were so like crazy. But Alice, different story.
That's a different story. I mean, look,
Stupendous.
he was pretty yoked. I mean, he was ready to take on anything that came his way.
Did you put Bane in this?
I did.
Oh my god, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Although you do a better Bane voice than I do.
Oh, okay. I don't even know what I'd want to say right now. Everyone needs
Don't say
a look.
anything. Don't say anything. Don't do it. Don't do it. All I'm going to take. There we go.
Most sexually active adults do.
There's the Bane voice I was waiting for.
You know, I actually only do it on the show now every once in a while just for fun, because otherwise it's a hard memory for me, because that's when I would throw my voice for my dog. That's what I would do, because she looked hideous. She's a bulldog. And she very much looked like Bane, like
Yeah.
What do you suppose is in that Danish? Is it cheese? Oh, but speaking of which, this I wasn't gonna bring it up. I was gonna skip this one, but this lady here, this was Arcane's right-hand lady.
I guess she was.
This lady apparently is supposed to be God, what's her name? Abby's mom.
Has got it going on.
Yeah, and they give her a little bit more backstory, a very tiny bit of backstory in Return of Swamp Thing. But that lady that kept, pushing him on, egging him on to basically take over the world is Abby's mom.
All right.
So, and we'll see next week that Abby's not remotely as resourceful or cool as she was in 2019.
I'm afraid that's very much a possibility.
I did, though, have one favorite character that really stands out in this movie, and we haven't talked about him yet. And that's Jude.
Jude was perfectly fine in this movie. I guess he was a local that they cast and no real experience, and they did a really good job with him.
Oh my God, he's wonderful. Like, you care about him so much. I don't know if they bashed him over the head or shot him, but he gets killed at one point, and Swamp Thing brings him back, and you're just kind of like, oh, thank you, thank God, because you didn't want nothing bad to happen to him.
Right.
So he had some of the best lines, like, oh shit, here comes trouble. Or this one here, kicking it don't help nothing. You got to punch it.
She needs a little, she's got a little something on her lip.
Oh yeah, and it goes along with that Hawaiian shirt.
She must be a Weird Al fan.
Somebody is. So, but I felt bad for Jude, because his day got completely effed up because Cable just came out of the swamp near that store.
Oh God, I know, right?
And then the rest of his day is just being chased by mercenaries, mad scientists, swamp.
And I'm happy to help you, miss.
So, I mean, he was actually a really great character, though.
Yeah, I didn't. One of the few times I didn't mind the interjection of a kid like that in a story like this.
Yeah. Well, because again, it wasn't like Next Week with the kids, which again I don't have that much of a problem with, but the annoying kid aspect does show up in the sequel.
Yeah, Return of Swamp Thing. Spoiler alert, that's next week. That is a whole different animal.
Yes. Again, I'm having more fun with this one than I did or will have with that one, I think.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun watching this one again. Regardless of what I think of the last part of the movie, it was definitely enjoyable. I did not mind even repurchasing this. I haven't had this on a format since early DVD days. So, or no, not DVD, VHS. And I'm really glad I picked this up. Everything looks good. I had such a fun time with it. I want to dip more into like the extras to get more of the behind the scenes goodies and whatnot. And no, I don't regret watching this at all. Next week, I'm debating whether I want to watch the Riff Tracks version or the standard version, which I have that as well on Blu-ray from MVD Rewind as well. I don't have the 4K of that though, but I got the standard.
The Blu-ray that you gave me is fucking gorgeous. The pictures that I
it
took
does look good.
Stunning.
Yeah.
I mean, the stills that I got from this were okay. Like it was hard to get a great freeze frame because again, this is an old DVD transfer from a VHS, so
yeah,
it was only so good. But again, some of them were good enough where I can get the mustache hairs on people's lips.
I love her going, shoo, shoo, get away, shoo, 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 get away. That whole scene was just like, wow, this is so goofy. And Swamp Thing's looking at her like, bitch, what?
That kind of made me feel bad.
You could say go away or something. Just the shoo, shoo, shoo. I am not 5 years old, lady.
Kinda, and he's not a bug.
No.
This moment here, this was probably the best moment that they filmed with him. Like this is Swamp Thing. And I don't know. He's a very different character in this movie than he is in the second one. Like when he becomes Swamp Thing in this, his speech becomes limited. His speech patterns are very limited.
Yep.
Almost like Frankenstein was. Whereas in the sequel, he just, hey, my name's Alec. And it's very, very different.
Very tongue-in-cheek, very self-aware, and very, hey, everybody, I'm a superhero.
Heather Locklear is my girl.
You're watching like Toxic Avenger and thinking like you needed to up your comedy game. Like, this is not the way to go. But that's still enjoyable for its own reasons. And then there's, of course, Heather Locklear in that one. So that'll be an interesting discussion next week as well. But between the two, Adrienne Barbeau is the better one and it's not even close.
Yeah. I mean, her acting ability is way further ahead.
Yeah, like I said, not even close. From the word go. Not to say Heather ain't bad, but she was more suited for like drama series than anything like a comic book movie.
She stinks. Yes.
You never watched Melrose Place and saw her getting her skivvies?
No, I did not. That was not my jam.
That's for you Melrose fans out there. I know you're watching.
I watched 90210 for a couple of years, but Melrose
I prefer 90210, but I watched Melrose because of reasons.
Heather be thy name.
There's a few be thy names. Thank you, Fox.
Yes, Fox was great for that. Oh, speaking of titties, this shot here was a choice.
That is so masculine. Oh.
Like, the was this in his contract?
Resist the sexiness and has to wipe the sweat off of his head.
Yeah, that's Bruno. Like, I can't keep it down. Like, give me two towels. Cul-de-sacs are sweating.
That's full masts. I'm kidding.
But no, this is a fun flick. I like it. I like monster movies, and this is the tagline is "Science made him a monster," and he does come off more of a monster in this one than he does in the second. He's more terrifying in a way. Like you said, he's got an arm. He's running around with no arm and still beating people's asses. When he regenerates his arm, it's like a very young sprout and it's moving, looking like it's alive. And to the point where, yeah, it does make you unsettled. So, right. I mean, he did have that monster capability. Oh, speaking of which, he had one hand and he used it to buy that nice lady a flower.
Don't lose the other arm, bro. Green does not mean go.
that was interesting. And it took her long enough to figure out that it was him, too. Like,
right.
really? Because otherwise, he keeps trying to talk to her, and she shoos him away, pisses at him, whatever the fuck else, and then he goes right back out to the woods and starts screaming again. So, like, again, the first part of the movie is great, but a little repetitive like that.
Let's pad that runtime, yo.
But no, it was, there was a lot of footage, a little bit of stock footage, and a lot of footage of him just kind of like traipsing around through the swamp, and you're just kind of like, oh man, how many takes did they make him do of having to like hike through this shit?
Well, at least they didn't follow him during the end credit scene, like continually walking through the swamp further and further and further away. Like he kept walking. They just put it on a freeze frame once he was a certain distance from the camera, and then they ran the rest of the credits. Boy, the ending felt a little abrupt, though. Now that I'm thinking about that, Of course, they were leaving it open for a sequel, but
well, yeah, which we eventually got with very minimal explanation of how
the leg.
Oh shit! So anyhow, yeah, Merkin Man here is chasing him with the fucking Scottish claymore, and that is a danger to him apparently, and he's chasing after Swamp Thing, and Swamp Thing throws Cable in front of him. He just straight up throws her.
That's a heel move in wrestling, guys. My God. Do not pull Sensational Sherry in front of you, Randy Savage. That is not okay.
Yeah, like I just think Vicky Guerrero, like, excuse me, no.
I think, well, based on the time frame, I thought initially like Miss Elizabeth or Scary Sherry, Sensational Sherry. You know, those were the ladies that could have done all right in this role too.
Oh, I think so. Yes, I think so. But then oh, where did this picture come from? This is way out of position. This just happened long before. There was a little accident there. And I didn't mess with that. I mean, I put eyeballs underneath it, but yeah, there was a little flub snafu, if you will.
Yeah.
Like I saw that.
What did you think of Jourdain as Arcane?
I love him. He was my favorite supervillain growing up when I was little. I liked him much better than Lex Luthor. Well, I liked him better than Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor.
He would have been a good Lex Luthor if you had switched him around.
I think so. Gene's Lex was a little bit different. He made it his own. It was phenomenal for what it was.
Yeah.
But I always liked Arcane. He was scary. He was smart. And he's the same type of character in the second. Again, a little bit cheesier, but it has that mad scientist feel to it. Where people tell him, "You're insane." He's like, "I've never felt more sane, actually." I'm going to live forever. That's pretty sane.
Hey, crazy brings in the bucks.
Crazy brings in the bucks. I mean, he was harder than a motherfucker to kill. Like, Swamp Thing stabbed him 4 or 5 fucking times, and he still kept getting up. Like, until finally, like, Swamp Thing does get him down on the ground, basically puts his foot on his chest and runs him through.
He's a eunuch, dude. You didn't have to blur that.
There was a vine. I didn't want to
need to know that.
And yes, kids, those vines run all the way up.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is what happens when I don't pre-approve your work.
I told you I was having a lot of fun last week.
Apparently so. The dick jokes start now.
It's because I love this movie. I always have. Like I haven't watched it in so long, but it used to be a movie where I'd watch it at least once or twice a year.
Oh, I'm just messing. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah, I know, but the early superhero movies, this Superman, Incredible Hulk, the Captain America movies, Spider-Man TV show, they were all cheesy, but they were fucking cool at the same time because you didn't know any better. And
Right.
the monsters in this, yeah, okay, so Swamp Thing does look a little toned down as far as not being a muck monster, but the acting chops were there, the story was there, the other monsters were there, like the believability of a mad scientist was truly there. It had all the great makings of a mad science creature feature, and it holds up still, more or less. More or
Yeah,
less.
it holds up very well. If you just want to have a fun night with some popcorn and watch an old 80s movie, that's just a lot of fun. You don't really need a complex plot with Swamp Thing. It's pretty straightforward. You're not going to miss much if you go to the other room to grab some more candy or soda or anything like that. It's also a quick watch. I mean, you're not sitting there for 2.5 hours like current DC and Marvel movies where you're like, my God, could this be a little shorter, please? Like, why are we dragging this out? Even with what little padding and stock footage they use, this does not clock in very longer past an hour and 30 minutes. And while yes, at times it feels like there's things missing, it doesn't feel like it's that so far out of place. You can't just kick back and enjoy and be like, oh, that was pretty fun.
Yeah, no, it's once Bruno takes that formula, shit
Yeah.
kind of cranks up in a way as far as its horror effect.
Yeah, that's when you know you're hitting the climax of the movie too. It's a good marker for knowing, oh, we're gearing up for the end here instead of like false finishes,
Yes. Well, and the thing is the actor's transformation was what really sold it because the makeup did not. Clearly, like Bruno going from a big man to a little man, that was interesting. But you can tell he was kind of wearing nylons on top of his head in a way.
Yeah.
But Arcane's transformation at first, the very first time you see him, not where he's looking like Grimace, but right here, he looks really cool. Like you're not sure what's going to end up happening to him.
Yeah. I wrote that down here. His evolution like this was fantastic.
Well, one of the things I pointed out was the difference between Arcane and Holland is Holland had a natural and very organic regrowth.
Right.
Arcane had to suffer the savagery of evolution, and he came out looking like that. And it was cool, other than looking like a merkin with the pig snout face, with beady eyes on crack. It was cool.
At least there wasn't some weird alligator costume.
Alligator costume. Once she got into the skirt, I took away the mustache. God damn, was that funny.
Well, what did you think of the original poster art for this? I mean, you got it for the background on here. I think it looks pretty cool, but unfortunately, it's a little misleading with the actual design of Swamp Thing. Once you get into the movie, you're like, boy, that doesn't really look right. But she looks about right.
Yes, she looks stellar. The artist did a wonderful job with her. I think the artist was working with more along the lines of what the comics looked like at that point.
Yeah.
But the cover art is beautiful. It truly, truly is. It made me want to see it. Renting it made me want to buy it.
Right.
I wish they would have kept it for this VHS or this DVD, which you can't really see. Sorry. Turn to the side. Will it work?
Goddamn nope. Green screen, yo.
I know. And we're talking about a green character tonight. So,
if you know what I mean. If you know what I mean.
I do. Anyway, that's going to 0 Point really quick. I apologize. Oh,
yeah.
At the end of the movie, did you stay for the end credit scene?
I did not. I don't remember.
He finally finishes screaming in the goddamn woods. You're like, oh, well, sometimes you just got to take that moment.
And just let it all out. Let the world see. Let the world hear. Let it feel your pain.
No, go away. I don't want you there anymore. Sorry. Not
So
you.
if a swamp thing screams in the woods, does it mean it really happened?
Only if a tree hears him. What if he falls, though? If the
Ooh.
trees, I mean, they're laughing.
Only if the wood breaks.
The wood breaks.
Hey, hard-hitting questions, yo.
Right. This movie's fun, though. I made a lot of fun of it because I have a lot of fun watching it. And you'll see that that's going to change from next week. Not because it's next week's not a good movie. It is. Has a much more serious tone where you could take little moments that are supposed to be serious and make them silly, and it's a lot more fun than a moment that was already a joke. Like, I don't want to make another joke on top of that joke. So that's where the second one probably won't have as much fun with it.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll do something fun with it. I'm pretty sure of that.
So, okay, I don't know if you looked at IMDb, and I know you tell me not to look at these all the time, but Swamp Thing got 5.3 stars, the movie. The TV show had what, 8?
Yeah, pretty close.
8.3, something like that.
Last time I looked, it was over 8, yeah.
Okay. Return of Swamp Thing had 4.6.
The disparity between the two.
It is a huge difference between the two. Like, I'm pretty sure they used the same sets. They just rearranged shit. But I think this movie deserved higher than a 5.3. I do. I don't know what necessarily. I'd say at least maybe a 7.
You'd go 7, huh?
I'd go as high as 7. The only thing it's missing is the budget.
Yeah.
Sorry, root beer's kicking into my stomach, so if I burp, it's the root beer.
Hey, unedited, unfiltered, uncut, 0-Point reviews just for you.
Oh, speaking of unedited and uncut, they made a couple choices here. So the first guy that they kill,
yeah, I caught this. Yeah,
bit by a venomous snake in his trousers. Like, they didn't stick that snake in the guy's trousers. That guy pulled the snake from his trousers and then put it up on the guy's face to bite him.
Yep. That was so wow. It was a little cringe, but it was funny.
I'm not here to kink shame, but who's like, you know what? I want to have something long and venomous and scaly and cold slither past my balls, up my dick, and out my zipper.
Only Kevin.
It would be the same guy from Last House on the Left. Where is he? This little sucker. He dies horribly in Last House on the Left. He dies horribly in this too.
Yeah.
He gets his skull crushed or his brain crushed, and that was cool. If the blood would have been a little bit darker, I'm sure that would have earned them the R rating.
Maybe. I mean, there wasn't that much else. There wasn't really any swearing or anything too graphically violent. Yeah, the sword scene at the end, but it's not real blood, and it wasn't really all that graphic. It was just brown slush coming out of Arcane, so there really wasn't much to it as far as like violence goes. I mean, yeah, maybe cutting off the arm, but this is at a time in the 80s when ratings were done way differently than they are now.
Yeah. And hell, I don't even know how this movie would have rated back then. As far as, did it do somewhat well, or was it somewhat received well? I don't remember. I honestly don't. Like,
it did okay at the box office, but it didn't do as good as they wanted to. I don't have the figures in front of me, but I remember like looking at Rotten Tomatoes. I think it was around a 60% on Rotten Tomatoes. And as far as I'd probably go about 6 out of 10 myself.
That's fair.
Maybe 6.5. I wouldn't go over that.
It's not a drama.
No. Yeah, if you're looking for a show that's the complete opposite of this, or movie that's Swamp Thing, but the complete opposite, basically the 2019 TV show is what you do when you take it very seriously. Although I remembered really liking the original show on USA Network years ago, and I thought
Yeah,
that was a lot of fun. I mean, I watched that like all the time, and I had no problems with the show. Was it great? Eh. But was
all
it
right.
fun? Hell yeah. I was never bored by that show. I mean, granted, I should probably rewatch it again and see how I feel about it now. But at the time when it was on TV, it was great. Same thing with this movie. Like when I eventually got around to seeing it a little bit older and not scarred for life like I had been, I found like the movie is like super enjoyable. It's fun. It moves along. No harm is done with this movie to the Swamp Thing character. There's nothing like legitimately like so bad with this movie that I would tell you don't watch this shit. Absolutely, it's you could throw this on. It's fun. There's nothing really to worry about with this movie. Now, when you get to the second one, it's pretty actively bad that I don't even know how it gets like a 4 or a 5 on any sort of scale.
Because the special effects were dope. They were dope, and they blew the budget in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, and then you had a hot blonde in it, and they thought that would do something for it too, and that really didn't pay off. And they made Swamp Thing like a snarky little jackass.
And I don't know how that worked out because she wasn't really famous at that point yet, other than
correct.
What she was on some nighttime soap opera, wasn't she? Not Dallas. I don't remember. I don't.
We
the
will
only thing
find
I
out by
mainly
next
remember
week.
her from is Melrose Place and Wayne's World too. That's it. Oh, and Inside Edition whenever she drinks and drives.
Oh, that's true. She was a pretty recurring character on that show. Jeff saying it like it's an actual TV show and not a news show.
And now God's punishing me with the mustache hair, duking it out with my nose hairs on camera.
Here, draw yourself another mustache. We could do it live on TV. Fill it in. Make it look actually brown instead of gray. You'll be okay.
I was trying to like use the same color as her hair.
Cocoa bean?
Kinda. Well, it varied between picture and picture, but this one here, like, she looks more like she could be like a Colombian drug lord or musician. It looks like Richie Valens' brother.
The views of Kevin Smith are not representative of the show 0 Point Reviews or Suns and Shadows podcast. Thank you for tuning in.
I love it. I love what I do. If I could make one person laugh per week, great. If I could make one person like cringe per week, fantastic.
That's like bonus points for him. So
it's what I live for. Like educating people is one thing, making them double take is another. So
yeah.
And there's a lot to double take in this. And again, if they went with the goofy and silly route, it wouldn't have been as much fun to have fun with. This is a fun flick. The next one has enough fun. This is neat. Yes, it's a Wes Craven movie. Not your typical Wes Craven movie in a way, because it is a comic book movie. It's not a comic book movie for kids. That's going to be the next one. The only thing that's really on par with this would have been the cartoon. If this would have had a budget, it would have been pretty on par with the cartoon as far as the way. Well, I guess that would have been the 2019 series, wouldn't it? That was pretty much what that was.
Pretty much. That was pretty much perfection, was that show.
Yes, but the cartoon, when I say it added that, it took what he looked like in this, escalated it a bit, and then we finally get to see that better looking Swamp Thing in the sequel. We don't get to see a better acting in the sequel. Well, no, we do from Dick. Dick's a lot cooler in that one.
That's true. Get a little more personality.
Yeah. But I will 0 point right into the next movie if I don't stop that there.
Right.
I can't help it. The last thing I'd say is, for as much as I didn't read it in high school, I do love Swamp Thing. He's always been one of my favorite characters. All of what I know from him is pretty much from these movies, and that's not a lot. That's pretty much a travesty from what I can tell.
Right.
But I'll never say an unkind word about these movies. Not really.
Good to hear. I never really read any of the comics. My familiarity is mostly like the movies, the original TV show, and then just like the animated stuff like we've seen through like Justice League Dark and whatnot. And those are pretty fun too. And I've always enjoyed the character. I've always wondered if I should start in on Swamp Thing, but I wouldn't know exactly where to start. I've heard like I don't remember exactly what I remember. How much sense does that make? But like where to actually start is like the Alan Moore era?
Yeah.
Just to check those out. And then that's probably the best place to go. And they got some great omnibuses, and I should probably check those out before Warner Brothers really puts the stop on printing those out. So should probably get into that, or getting them on digital somehow and being able to finally read them and see what the real charm to Swamp Thing is. But I've always like enjoyed the character. I've had a lot of fun with the properties through the years, so maybe it's time for me to get into that. Hey, if anybody has a comment about, hey, give me a great Swamp Thing comic series to start with, or an omnibus, I would love to hear it. I would like to get more knowledge into Swamp Thing, get a little more experienced. So,
Swamp Thing is a gateway drug to Constantine. We all know how addictive Constantine is. So.
Yep, smoking, drinking, sexing, getting
exercising,
cancer, all that jazz.
Yeah, we'll have to do that movie eventually.
We'll go all Keanu on everybody for that one. Whoa.
I'll have to break out my pack of bubblegum cigarettes.
Oh my God, I haven't had a pack of those since I was like 10. They're probably that old, aren't they?
They look like they are. they still smell good. Everyone's like, why would you buy that? Because they're candy cigarettes.
That's funny. That's almost something like you'd find in this movie in a background scene or something at some point. But I want to say probably the last thing I'd comment on is, for everything we've talked about this movie, it is very well shot. They got great scenery in this. So the cinematography is actually really good. You could definitely see where Wes Craven's got an eye for what he was doing with this movie and where he would eventually go with his career. And this might not have done a whole lot for a lot of people's careers, but it definitely gave Dick Durock a very nice career doing Swamp Thing. And I'm all about supporting that. So thank you, everybody, for checking out Swamp Thing with Kevin and Jeff. Screamers, unite. Hit that like button, comment below, subscribe. We are working to hit 200 subs. If we can do it by October, end of October, we might be doing a giveaway. So please check us out. We'll see you next time. Make sure you check us out on all of our social media platforms. We got Facebook, Twitter. We are at Suns and Shadows. We're also on Instagram at Suns and Shadows Cast. We are at SunsAndShadows.com. Thank you again, everybody, and we'll see you down the road.